Thank you for meeting with me. Can you say your name and talk a little bit about what you do for work?
My name is Ayanna Richiliano. Well, I graduated in June, and then I got in contact with the city of Mosier through Jamie, the city manager, and just kind of talked to her about kind of what they needed as a city and that they were in need of a graphic designer, that it was all falling on her shoulders. And so she's like, I don't know how to do this. And I was like, that's exactly what I've been going to school for. And so from there, I quit my restaurant job and started doing graphic design for them and for a couple other small clients.
What sort of skills do you need to be a designer?
It's a lot of people skills that you need. That some people might think graphic design is just working on the computer, but you need to be able to communicate with people and be patient, but also be clear in what you're saying so that it can get across, whether it's text, email, phone call, because everybody's schedule is busy. So just figuring out what needs to get done, and the best way about it is the way that you deal with clients, of figuring out what they want, but it might not be what they're telling you that they want.
What inspires you creatively?
I like that I get to be creative and artistic, and then there's also some structure to it, but it's a way that I can be creative and artistic and still get my bills paid, which is really nice. I like that there's so many different things with graphic design. There's illustration that you might be doing, there's layout, there's font work, there's branding, brand packaging, just so many different things that you could be doing, so it's not one box.
How did you decide which path to take after high school?
This is gonna be a long part.
Okay.
So when I was in the 8th grade, my brother has been homeschooled since he was in the 3rd grade, and he's 3 years younger than me. So he'd been homeschooling for a few years at this point, and I wasn't at school for some reason, I don't remember why, and I was talking to his counselor that came to the house, and she was like, well, you could do this early college program, because like she knew how I was doing in school. And so I looked into that. I went out of public school halfway through the 8th grade, finished up on homeschool, and then freshman year was my first year at Columbia Gorge Community College in Hood River. And I was a full-time student there for 2 years, and then I transferred my junior year to Mount Hood to complete those 2 years for my graphic design associates. And that was a lot. I had the privilege of going through it with a friend of mine who's the same age for the first year or two. And so being 14, going into community college classes is interesting because the teachers kind of know a little bit about you, but the students don't. And so you'd be introducing yourself, kind of talking about what you're doing. And in Oregon, you can't really have a job at 14. So they'd be like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't work. It's not legal. And so people finding out that I was 14, 15, 16 was pretty entertaining. But then there's some parts that were either teachers or students that didn't think I should be there because I was on the younger side. And so they're like, why are you here? It's just kind of wasting their time thinking I wasn't taking it seriously, which wasn't super fun. So it was a bit of both sides of people being really interested and kind of asking the story, and other people thinking that I shouldn't be there.
What kind of challenges have you encountered along the way?
Yeah, so I had initially just I found out about graphic design because I wanted to do something creative, but I wanted to be able to pay my bills and not worry, basically, I guess, about where rent would be coming from or the food for that week or whatever like that. And so I'd looked into graphic design, and then once I got into the field and the path to do it, it was just a lot of hard work, a lot of late nights, my fellow students and I, we like to kind of joke around that once we graduated, we would actually be able to get a full night's sleep, eat normal meals at normal times, go outside, see the sun for a little bit. So there was those sides of things of really late night homework. Like since I live in Hood River and my campus was in Gresham, I would have to do the drive twice a week. In the morning, be there by 9:30, and then class would end around 5. And so just getting homework done, I had to put into place that can't be doing work after 2 o'clock in the morning because I have to be able to go to sleep, get enough sleep to drive, and do it safely so that I'd get there and back. So that was one thing that we had to deal with. For my first 2 years when I was at Columbia Gorge Community in Hood River, I couldn't drive. So I'd have to figure out ways to get to class, get home, figure out if I was going to be studying there, taking a little bit more time. So that was an added obstacle of not being able to go where I needed to be on my time schedule. It was on whoever I had to be reliant on. But it was helpful that I had a lot of people that were willing to help and give me rides and use public transport when I could. But yeah, so that was a couple things to deal with. And then just teachers who sometimes didn't think that I was taking it seriously, and so they wouldn't just treat me as a normal student just because they knew I was younger, and so they were kind of feeling like they were hindered when I wasn't really stopping them from doing anything. They were just feeling another barrier of, oh, this is still a kid. I need to watch what I'm saying. I need to watch what's happening. And not all the teachers liked that feeling, but they wouldn't have had to do that. It was just a thing that they kind of felt while I was in class. But for the most part, most of my teachers were really great, and half of them wouldn't know until it would actually come up of something of, oh, I just got my driver's license, or oh, I got my first job, or something along those lines that would have to do with age.
What do you love about the work that you do?
I like being able to take the ideas and make them into something that usually you can touch or see that just didn't exist before. Like even just with hand drawing just a normal picture, it's a blank page, and then you draw a picture and it's got something on it now that looks like a flower or a landscape or a person. So taking those ideas that didn't exist previously in like a tangible sense to being able to be at that stage is really cool. And then just being able to problem solve on different levels of different types of problems and issues that need to be fixed with whatever project it is.
Do you have any career advice for students?
I think if you go the school route, it would depend on the teacher that you have, because they're kind of how you start getting prepared. Not to say that you can't without going to school or with a different teacher, but my main instructor at Mount Hood was a big part in me being even ready to do it. Just the way that stuff was geared was that we were a smaller community college that were competing against like PSU and just the bigger schools that had more funding and had more classes and more years. But at the end of our 2-year program, his goal was to get us to par to be able to compete for jobs of freelance or agency. And then the freelance part of, all right, what do you want to be working on? What's your goal? And just like practical things of, we set up spreadsheets to figure out, all right, these are all the bills that we're gonna have if we were to do freelance. These are the rent, the utilities, the food, and then whatever office expenses, emergency, car, taxes were included in there. So you could just kind of figure out what your base rate was to figure out, okay, if I charged this much and I work these many days and I take these many holidays and I take these many sick days, then I can still survive. And it's actually not as much as you'd think. It's not going to be going to restaurants every night, and it's not going to be having like a 3-bedroom place with no roommates and whatever you want to do. But it's doable. You just have to want to do it and put in that type of hard work and think about it from a practical standpoint of, I don't actually need all of these things. I can survive with this, this, and this. And being able to put that on the paper kind of takes away how scary it was. Because before that, I had thought, I'm going agency route, it's more stable. But seeing that kind of helped me lean a little bit more towards, well, what if I want to do freelance? What if I want to work for myself and have the hours that I want to have? And so that helped prepare my mindset of how to get ready for things like that.
Could you describe your average workday?
Yeah, so a regular day is waking up, getting out of bed, getting ready for the day, and then checking emails, figuring out what correspondence needs to get done between me and a client to figure out what the next step of a project is, whether that's sending something for approval and checking up on that to see, all right, do I have the okay to go ahead and go this direction? Do I need to switch directions? And then after going through emails, I'll grab something to eat. I'll get to work started depending on what stage of a project I'm in. I might be in the beginning stages looking for inspiration. I might be in the stages of using Illustrator and doing vector work to clean something up to show to a client, maybe doing roughs, maybe doing adjustments to do finals, maybe using Photoshop to do mock-ups and stuff like that. But that's like the bulk of the work. And then splitting it up, doing lunch, and figuring out if it's a full day, if it's a half day, depending. So try to spend some time outside on my lunch break, do something outside, and doing something where my brain doesn't have to be thinking about work. So it doesn't have to be a productive thing. I might just watch an episode of a show for an hour to kind of recharge and restructure the path that I need to be thinking about, because you can just get so overworked and burnt out if everything you do is productive and you never give yourself a chance to rest, which I found out when I was in school. And it took a little while to get back to where I needed to be productive during productive time requires having some time off to be refreshed and be able to think clearly. But yeah, so having that time in the day is really important, and making sure to drink a lot of water, because you can get headaches just staring at a computer, not moving as much. So standing up sometimes with the desk, moving it up, or just taking 5 minutes, even if I'm in the middle of something, to stretch and get a little bit moving is really helpful. And then I do some things that I enjoy doing. So I'm learning a language, so I might do some of my language learning to kind of flip the direction of my thought process, which has helped sometimes with thinking of a new angle for a project that I'm working on. And so the day depends on the day, depends on what projects I have going on, but there's a variety of things that go on throughout the afternoon part of the day.
What sort of students might be drawn to design?
Someone who's creative might be interested in graphic design and freelancing. Someone who has been interested in some sort of art but wasn't really sure how to be able to live off of it, because that's kind of where I started. Let's see, for freelancing, it's just somebody who wants to live a life that might not work with a 9-to-5 job that you have to go to and have a boss to account to and have meetings and whatever 5 days a week type thing that you're just not sure you're structured for, because that, I don't think it would work for me, and it wouldn't work for very long if it did work.
What is the most satisfying part of your job?
Yeah, when you're working with a small business, you have less people that you are communicating with, and so when you get that team of people together, it might just be one person depending on the business, and you show them your work, it's really cool to be able to see, wow, I really like that, or I like how you incorporated this that we talked about before. Just something along those lines of you see it on their faces or in their messages or just by the way it's used. And it's just really cool to have a finished product that I can look at and show people. Like, this is something that you could touch. This is something that exists out in the world that I've done. I made it from, usually it's from scratch. Sometimes it's from, there's some things to start with, but you make it that finished product, and that's really cool.